And with that, and the rankings on the mind, we welcome you to a loaded edition of What's Trending. Yesterday, the USA Today Coaches Poll was unveiled for all of the nation to see. And to many of our surprise, BYU showed up in the top 25 at number 23. I think we heard the overwhelming national rhetoric of BYU losing their starting quarterback, Jake Retzloff, late in the game, thus bumping BYU out of a top 25 position. But apparently, the USA Today Coaches Poll did not get the memo, at least not all the way, Jason, because BYU is in. Straight up, does BYU deserve a top 25 preseason ranking in college football?
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that the coaches poll at least recognizes that, because the word you use, the rhetoric, it's real. Ever since the quarterback change, and once everybody knew BYU was going to be starting a new quarter. Look, and I understand why people are talking the way they are. It's the most important position on a football team. It's the most important position in sports, probably. And so the fact that BYU had a starting quarterback that started as many games as Retzloff did last year and led them to the record that they did, the fact that he's not there and you're starting guys who have never started at BYU, I can understand wanting to drop BYU down from what you originally thought. But look, I looked at this. If Retzloff was still the quarterback of BYU, I viewed them easily as a top 15 team.
Yeah, I thought at worst, like maybe 16 to 18.
See, I thought maybe they could get as high as like 12. I thought they could get in that range. So when you then take into account that they are going to be starting a new quarterback, and there is a lot of unknowns with that, I figured they would drop, but I did not feel that with the rest of the team around the quarterback that they should drop out of the top 25, especially with that amount of production coming back. So if I'm going off, let's just the conservative route at 15, if I thought they were going to be right at 15, the fact that they're dropping 8 spots, that seems fair to me, according to the coaches poll. Now, the AP poll when that comes out may be a completely different story. We'll get to that in a minute. But yes, I do believe that they deserve to be ranked in the top 25.
A few caveats about the coaches poll. If you are not aware, some of the coaches don't really care a lot about casting that ballot. And I don't think that that's because they're bad coaches or they're not attentive to college football. They just have better things to do with their time, Jason.
Yeah.
They have better time than to worry about where should I put each of these teams in my preseason coaches poll. So they delegate that responsibility to other members of their staff.
Right.
We jokingly call it the Sports Information Director's poll. I don't know what Kalani Sitake does with it. I don't know what any coach specifically does with it. Haven't talked with them at length about it, nor do I really care to talk with them about it at length when it comes to this preseason coaches poll. But I have heard over my years covering this sport that sometimes the actual games and preparation for the season, especially during training camp, just matters more than, what should I do about numbers 21 to 25? Gosh. So I believe that while the media clearly knows about Jake Retzloff's departure, maybe some of the coaches or the staff personnel that are casting these ballots in the coaches poll aren't as keen on the details of such. And just remember BYU lambasting Colorado in the Alamo Bowl and going 11-2 and being in the college football playoff conversation for much of last year.
Or, Spencer, are they so much in the know and have connections with BYU that they've got the inside track on just how good this team is going to be?
It could be. Look, it could happen.
Look, it's another thought. It's another way to think of it. I'm just saying.
So I enjoyed when I was pleasantly surprised that BYU showed up at number 23 in any poll, in this specifically coaches poll. I do think BYU's defense and coaching staff and weapons all around are good enough to give them consideration for a top 25 ranking. Do they deserve to be in? I don't know. but they're right there. Like, I feel like BYU is deserving of receiving votes. How about that?
Yes. Yeah, no, look, again, I go back to the fact that I understand the thought process in dropping BYU down with the change at quarterback.
Yes, how many spots is that worth?
Exactly. That's what this whole argument boils down to, is how many spots, and I guess it starts with where you would have had them had there been no change at the quarterback. That question has to be answered first. And each individual is going to be able to answer that for themselves. Like, okay, well, I would have had him here, had BYU here. Now with the change at quarterback, to me, that's going to be worth X amount of spots dropped.
Yeah.
So for me, again, conservatively, I had 15 because I thought they would absolutely be a top 15 team. I thought they could get as high as 12, get close to being a top 10 team in the preseason because of all the hype and what they did last year and so much production coming back. Then you take into account the fact that you are starting a new quarterback. To me, I don't have an issue dropping them. I understand dropping them.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that you should drop them far enough that it puts them out of the top 25.
Okay, we just showed a list of some notable preseason publications. And we should note that when it comes to Lindy's and Athlon Sports preseason marks, those were published before Jake Retzlaff was officially out of the program. Lindy's had BYU at number 21. Athlon, even with Retzlaff in play, had BYU at number 30.
See, and that's
okay.
That's ridiculous to me.
Now, the coaches poll, obviously, is post Jake Retzlaff departure. It happened yesterday. BYU at number 23. Wow. CBS Sports this morning. Tom Fornelli and others involved in this released their 1 through 136. They rank all 136 Division I college football teams at the FBS level. BYU at number 36. I believe that is absolutely fair. It's in the receiving votes category. There are question marks about quarterback, but BYU is still good enough that if they win 1 or 2 games in the preseason, they're probably in the top 25 AP poll.
So did you say Athlon's was with the change or was prior to?
It was prior. They were 21 with Retzlaff in the mix.
Yeah. I mean, you have to answer where you would have had them before. And then, in your opinion, how many spots does that drop them? Again, for me, and look, we got the blue goggles over here on the set. Maybe I need to put them on, but I would have had them top 15. And even if you're dropping, say 15, if you're dropping them 10, you're still
25.
You're still top 25.
Okay.
I still believe this team deserves that.
I believe that BYU is somewhere in the 25 to 35 category. Like that's the range that I would put them in right now. If I were voting in the AP poll, I would look at where all the teams shake out. And I know the preseason polls don't really matter that much other than creating context for those early season games to make people want to watch, right? It's like, oh, it's exciting. It's a top 25 matchup to kick off the season. We don't know. I talked to Matt Berry at Big 12 Media Days, and he's like, can we just be done with that? Can we have our first ranking like 6 weeks into the season so that we actually know what these teams are? I like that logic, but we are selling a product.
Yeah.
And we are trying to get people to engage, and marketers are involved, and there's a ton of, billions of dollars of advertising here. They need to create context and excitement, so that is why they have these preseason top 25 rankings, to drive the market to watch these games.
So you said that your range would be 25 to 35.
Yes.
Okay, so we expect the AP poll to come out on Monday. Mm-hmm. Where do you believe BYU, where do you think those that vote in the AP poll, where do you believe they will have BYU?
Yeah, 8 to 10 spots out. Receiving votes, but 8 to 10 spots out. I think that there are enough media voters that have common ground in what BYU can do as a team, not just one position, even though it is the most important position in football, quarterback. Literally on offense, you touch the ball on every snap, unless there's some gimmick play. But there is enough understanding and even-keeled members of the media that know what BYU is as a complete team, with special teams, which should be great again, defense, which we expect to be very solid, and then, weapons on offense and an untested quarterback. But I think that's good enough for 8 to 10 spots out of the top 25 receiving votes. In position, as I mentioned earlier, Jason, that if you win a couple of games in non-conference, BYU comes out, they handle Portland State, they win by 30 plus. And then they go after Stanford and they take care of business against the Cardinal and they win, 35 to 13 or whatever. It's a 20 plus point win. Then they're in the AP top 25 before they go to East Carolina after a bye week, and they're ranked to start Big 12 play. I think that they deserve to be in that position. I think they will be with a chance to be ranked by the time they go to Boulder and open up Big 12 play.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page in terms of where we think they're going to land. Again, I still believe they should be in the top 25.
You think they should be?
But I don't expect them to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't. The writing's on the wall in terms of how people are talking about BYU nationally, whether they pay attention or not. They are dropping them, and you've got all these buys and sells, all that stuff. So I do not expect the AP poll to be generous to BYU. So I'm like you. I expect them to be a team receiving votes. I will be shocked if when you count up all the votes, they're lower than 35.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I expect anywhere but, 28, 35. It's very similar to what you're saying.
Brett McMurphy, friend of the program, who's been with us several times, he does not have BYU anywhere on his ballot.
Right.
So
he's high on another team.
Joel Klatt, another notable college football personality, has put out his media poll, BYU nowhere to be found. So I know that has riled up some BYU folks, but it's okay. Ultimately, it's okay.
Hey, how long were we talking about the fact this team won? Everybody knows they're good. What in the world are they going to use as motivation next year? Everybody's going to be patting them on the back.
Now you have it.
Now you have it.
Now they're right back where they want to be.
You're welcome, everybody.
In fact, there are many BYU fans that showed up in my mentions on social media yesterday that were like, ugh. I mean, it's great to be ranked, but I'd rather not be ranked. I'd rather catch everybody by surprise. So the fact that BYU was 23 in the coaches poll, many of you didn't like that because we thrive in the undervalued category. Like, under promise, over deliver. That is the mantra, right? BYU's going to be mediocre, man, blah, blah, blah. And then you come out and you punch people in the mouth and win some games, and all of a sudden you're ranked, and now you get to play that card all season long. See, nobody believed in us, and now we're proving people wrong. I still think for the most part, BYU, even with the number 23 coaches poll ranking, when they don't show up in the AP poll, I don't think they will. They'll have exactly what you're talking about, the added motivation to go out and prove people wrong again.
Do you think there's a chance that BYU, if to the scenario that you played out, that you start out well and the quarterback play is maybe better than people think, and you start to see that what you had expected under Jake Retzloff at quarterback is still happening with this BYU team on both sides. Do you believe that BYU could climb the polls faster than someone else? Because people are like, okay, well, I kind of thought before all this went down they were going to be here, and maybe I didn't give them enough credit. I'm going to bump them up maybe a few spots higher than I would have before because maybe I was wrong to start with.
No doubt about it, because BYU still will be on the radar to a degree.
Right.
I think media voters at large are holding. It's like, I'm just going to see what they do the first couple of weeks. Yeah, they'll receive some votes. Some people will put them at 24 or 25 in their poll. There are a lot of media voters. I mean, hundreds, okay? So they'll put them down low, but I think most people are in a holding pattern. If they come out and look good in the first two games, yeah, why would we not think that they will still capitalize on the momentum that was built late last season?
Right. Well, let's try and
then take some big jumps.
And let's try and get them to where we thought we were going to have them before, maybe a little bit faster than say just a spot here, spot there, moving forward.
Frankly, if BYU is nowhere to be found, even in the receiving votes category, all the better. Phil Steele came out and ranked BYU in the 50s.
I'm telling you right now, if they're not a team receiving votes, I am going to be so angry.